Hey, what's up? Pixelflux here, and today is Sunday, the 1st of May. And in the UK, we've got a bank holiday weekend, which means we don't have to go to work on Monday. And I've also taken the Tuesday off, so basically it's Wednesday for me. Anyway, I've got a little bit of time on my hands and a little hangover in my head. I thought, I've got some time, I'm gonna make some videos. So this video is gonna be about my current laptop setup. Now, I've made a video about my laptop a little while ago. I think it was 2-3 months ago. Basically talked about it a little bit, but this one's just going to be packed full of more information, the latest parts that I've got in it, because I've upgraded it a little bit more since. I did talk about it in that previous video. I'm just going to give you some insights on what I use in terms of gaming, in terms of work on this particular laptop, because it's a beast of a machine. Now, it's an Alienware 18. It's a 2013 model, also known as the Viking. It's got a 18.4 1080p display, and originally I bought it with much lower specs. Now, originally the 980Ms did not exist in 2013, so I did get it in, with pretty good specs for the time, and they were basically GTX 780M, 4GB, cards in SLI. It had a Core i7 4700MQ, which I used to overclock a little bit. It had 16 gigs of RAM, and obviously the same display, and Windows 8 Home, or Basic. I don't know, whatever they were called at that time. So, still a pretty powerful machine for that time, and it was rivaling desktops with 780, with a desktop GTX 780 card. So, pretty good. I was running all games in maximum settings and whatnots, but obviously as the time goes by, I wanted more. It's just the way it is. So, I've upgraded this laptop before Christmas. So, just during the holiday season. So I've got, the latest and greatest for my gaming, and obviously there's the holiday time, so, I can spend a little time tinkering with it, playing some games, testing it out, just seeing what's what. So, the new specs are literally here as follows in the GeForce Experience window. So I've got two GTX 980M graphics cards, 8GB each. I'm running an i7 4930MX CPU at 3 GHz. That's a lie. If I go to XTU, I've got it running at a solid 4 GHz. A little bit undervolted there as well, and I've recently ran a stress test just to see that yes, it does pass it, does not overheat. This is actually overclocked. I think the default's a 37, so I've got a 300 megahertz overclock on it. It copes with it. I've seen these laptops running at 4.3 gigahertz. It's not a problem, but I'm already running low on the power. Because when I'm gaming with all these overclocks that I'll show you in a minute, my battery actually gets drained. I don't know if you've ever seen this happen, but my battery actually does kick in and discharge over time as I'm playing. Then I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM, which I've also upgraded, and I'm running the same 1080p display, but this time I'm running not at 60 Hz, which I used to, but at 110 Hz. And this is not me lying. This is not an external display. This is an internal laptop display. If I just go to the DirectX diagnostic tool, all the same settings here, specs, and 110 Hertz. So just to double show you, one display, that's the laptop's panel, 1080p. If I go to display adapter properties, I've got all these options here. I've actually got a 120 as a custom refresh rate for this screen. I do get a little bit of artifacting, like some certain colors kind of flicker some pixels. So I don't generally use this setting for when I'm working or browsing the web. I use the 110 because that gives me absolutely no artifacts. It's just beautiful, clean. Sometimes I do use 120 when gaming because somehow games don't hit that specific color gamut that makes the pixels flicker, or at least I don't ever notice anything like that. So sometimes I do use the 120, but most of the time, I'd say 99 point whatever percent, I just do it 110. So that's that. I will make a video about overclocking your screens because it's a very useful thing to have. It's just, you know, the experience that I had when I went from 60 hertz to 110 hertz was just out of this world. It was incomparable. It's one of the greatest things that you can do to a computer, in my opinion. So, you know, when I'm building a next desktop or whatnot, I'm definitely going to have a 144 hertz display, and I'm definitely even going to try to overclock that, see if I can get it up to, say, 200 hertz or something like that. It's beautiful. The latency's gone. So, you know, moving the windows around in Windows is beautiful. Working on Photoshop's beautiful. It's just, the experience is just great. And in games, especially if you've got the horsepower to, you know, spit out those extra frames, you will actually see the extra frames. So, you know, the game becomes just that much smoother. So, you know, highly recommended, and keep checking back as I make that, when I've made that video about overclocking. And again, really simple stuff. I will link it in the description down below. So that's that. And I'm obviously running Windows 10 Pro. Now you'll notice that I'm running a little older driver than what's available for the 1st of May 2016. If you have noticed that, you're eagle-eyed, congratulations. If you have not, then whatever, doesn't really matter. Games run fine. I've imported the the newer SLI profiles to this here driver using the Nvidia Inspector. You know, I think it's absolutely fine. So if I launch Nvidia Inspector here, I am running a modified VBIOS, which is made by a guy called Prima. If you Google Prima VBIOS, you'll find him. Really good guy. Looks after the Alienware users. There's quite a lot of stuff going on with that, you know, in terms of modding and whatnot. And I've just turned on this just to show you that, yes, indeed, 2 GPUs, and I'm running them at 100 megahertz base clock for the core overclock, and 200 megahertz on the memory. And that's just my standard setup. That's what I do, you know, when I'm gaming 24. It just runs like this 24/7. It's not something that's unstable or whatever. You know, this is proven to just go, you know, to perform its Call of Duty. So basically, yeah, it just runs, and, you know, I keep it overclocked. Yes, it's a laptop. Yes, they can be overclocked. It's not a problem. But you gotta get a beefy laptop, you know, things like a shitty Razer Blade. You will not overclock that thing, and even if you tried, it would be just a waste of your time. And, you know, things like Razer Blade, they just make me mad, because, you know, they do shove, you know, good graphics cards in there, and they try to shove a good processor in there and whatnot, and they sell it as a gaming machine, but that slim laptop does not cool itself. You just cannot bend the laws of physics. You cannot. I don't know how they do it and why they do it, actually. Because, you know, from experience, these things just overheat and they drop in performance, and that's it. And, you know, you've paid a lot of money for what looks good on paper but is crap on, you know, in terms of real world performance. So I don't know why people do that. Why do they keep buying these slim laptops? Yes, they're portable. Yes, they will be speedy when you do something light. But if you tried some, you know, heavy gaming, whatever, they just throttle, and that's it. That's money out the pocket for something that you're not even getting. With these beefy laptops like a Sager, Eurocom, there's some other brands. There's the Origin, Alienware. You know, they've got massive heat sinks. They've got plenty of fans. They cool themselves. So pretty good. Anyway, so these are the graphics card specs. I can always undervolt as well. That's that. So that's the thing. So in terms of performance, what am I getting? Well, you can kind of say that these 980Ms, especially when they're overclocked, I would say that they're equal to a GeForce GTX 780 desktop, a little bit overclocked as well. Or actually quite a bit overclocked, as you'll see, and or a desktop 970 each. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because if I go to my browser here, on my domain, which is pixelflux.net, I've got some secret files that I've uploaded just to let you know. So these are my benchmarks for Unigine Heaven. And if you just have a look over there, I'm using the Extreme preset, 8x mSAA, with extreme tessellation, everything, you know, just the maximum 1080p preset for DirectX 11. And I'm using this for all these different benchmarks. So I've done this benchmark on my work computer, on my Xeon workstation. Now, it does not tell you the full story here. That computer's got 40 threads, actually 2 of those Xeons, and it's got a desktop 980, which I've recently upgraded to 2 Quadro M5000 cards. But, you know, at the time I did it with a 780. So basically that's what I got with that card. And that particular card is an MSI Lightning Edition, which I believe is a little bit overclocked. Factory overclocked. Didn't check, but, you know, feel free to correct me in the comments down below. I'll double check. So that's what I got. So average frame rate is about 46, right? So I've got the maximum, which is 107, and then I've got the 108. So that's the score. And then I've done some benchmarking using my previous laptop, which is kind of the same laptop, but previous specs, right? So that's what I got. And as you can see, that's the processor that I mentioned, the i7-4700 and the GTX 780M2 graphics cards there, 4 gigabytes each. That was on Windows 8 and exactly the same preset. So right off the bat, that little laptop setup was actually beating the 780 desktop setup. So again, like I said, for the time, that was really good because, you know, a desktop 780 was quite a beefy card. Then obviously we've got the TI, which came out later, which probably would have beaten that a little bit. But, you know, still good, really good. And then I've actually upgraded the laptop even further, as is evident by here and me babbling for about probably 5 minutes now. So I've done the benchmark again, same settings, and that's what I got, which is essentially double what I had before. So I was really happy with the performance of Maxwell. I can tell you that. Maxwell was a leap, you know, just a huge leap by all means. It's just incredible the way what they did with it. So, you know, there's a Kepler, there's my new Maxwell's, double points. And actually, mind you, that test was also taken with the old processor. I didn't even do this test with the new processor. Didn't have to anyway, because, you know, for obvious reasons, Heaven is just a GPU benchmark, so that processor doesn't really matter. But double the points. So that being said, you can see why I'm saying that these cards of mine are essentially overclocked 780s or 970s, because that there probably that is what you're probably gonna get from a 970. You know, unless you obviously get a good edition card, overclock it a little bit, then you can go, you know, quite a bit higher than that. But, you know, still, that's around what you're gonna get from a 970. So, you know, really happy with that. So that's just to put things in perspective. In terms of games, things like, say, Tomb Raider 2013, ultra settings, everything maxed out, FXAA instead of mSAA. I choose that. Instead of SSAA, which is super sample anti-aliasing. I use FXAA. So everything maxed out. Tress FX Air. I get about 110 FPS, and that's solid. That's without drops. So, you know, V-synced to a 110 hertz panel, beautiful, really smooth, and that's, you know, ultra settings 1080p, beautiful. So, you know, that plays well. Things like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, everything maxed out, shadows on medium, because I personally cannot tell the difference between medium, high, and ultra. Really can't, at least when I'm moving around or whatever. I tried. There's like such a slight difference that it does not warrant the performance impact for me, so I just keep that at medium. And I've also turned off Hairworks, which unfortunately, due to probably the engine limitations or something like that, doesn't really quite work for The Witcher. And they tried to do all these tweaks to it, and they removed a lot of strands of hair, and they did some, removing of the hair from like things that you don't really see, like from different angles, and that now results in like hair popping on bears if you look around the dead body and whatnot. It just doesn't look good anymore. And I don't blame Nvidia like a lot of people do, like, oh, GameWorks, shit, Hairworks, Pissworks, whatever. It's not their fault, and neither is it the fault of CDPR, because they did a good job with the game, but unfortunately I think it's just the engine that cannot render the whole pipeline with the GameWorks. Because say if you've got games like Far Cry 4, GameWorks features, especially Hairworks, absolutely beautiful and did not tank my frame rate at all. I've got a video which I can link right about now. Say here, I've played that game, and Hairworks is absolutely beautiful. It looked like 20 times better than the Witcher implementation. Didn't tank my frame rate at all. I was running at like 100 FPS or whatever. It doesn't matter. So yeah, that I think is just a bad implementation. So anyway, so all settings at ultra, just the two settings kind of turned down. 110 locked if I'm walking around, say, Velen, Novigrad areas, the outside, forests. If I go back to the city, Novigrad, Oxenfurt, it's probably about 90 something FPS, because it does drop in the cities. But overall, I'm really happy with the performance. So and again, depends on where you are in the city, because if you're like walking around like houses and whatnots, that's again 110 locked. If you're in the really heavy, say the central square of Novigrad or something, that's gonna drop to 90 something for me. So again, like I said, really happy with the performance. So that's that. And yeah, like I said, it's just a beefy laptop. It works. It cools itself. There's not much I can't do with it. Things like 4K video editing using Premiere, that just works really smoothly because of the graphics cards and the Mercury engine. Gaming works beautifully. Some games I do play at 4K as well. So if I go to my Nvidia control panel, I've got SLI turned on. Some games I turn it off. Like say Mortal Kombat didn't support SLI, at least at launch, the MKX. So I had to jimmy some SLI support in within Nvidia Inspector. Or, some games that just plain don't like SLI, so turn it off. Some games don't like SLI, but they do have things like PhysX. So I disable the second card and just dedicate it to PhysX. Just do that thing, and the game runs on one card and offloads all the physics calculations. So the second one gives me a giant boost, even if SLI is not supported. So got that. In terms of 3D settings, yeah, that's just gonna. There we go. So in terms of 3D settings, I do use Nvidia DSR and all the options checked up. 4x is the 4 times my native resolution, which is going to be 4K, and 4x is not going to be like a giant resolution. It takes the spatial resolution, if you will. So 4x is going to be 4K, so twice length and twice width. That's 4 times the resolution. So don't get that confused, because a lot of people are like, oh, 4x is supposed to be like 8K. Yeah, it should really, if you were looking at linear resolution, but it isn't really. So if you take your resolution and you multiply that resolution by, if you multiply the numbers and then multiply that by this thing, say that, and then you get the number, and and then you take the 4K's measurements, you multiply those, you'll get the exact same number. So, you know, just in case you want to check that out. Anyway, DSR smoothness, I use 20%. Anything between 10 and 20 is good. Is nice and smooth and relatively sharp. Anything, you know, the default 33% is just too fucking blurred. Never use that crap. Single display performance mode, highest available refresh rate because I want the 110 wherever possible, SLI rendering mode, blah blah blah, you know, all these regular settings. Now Nvidia is kind of crap. I didn't give us SLI users MFAA when SLI is on, but you know, when SLI is off they give you MFAA options as well, so sometimes I use those. So that's good. And now why I do like the Nvidia DSR is because if I can choose the screen resolution to, you know, be 4K if I want to. The beauty of that is that if I'm playing at 4K, I've still got the 110 hertz overclock or 120 or whatever, because the downscaling happens before the GPU pipes out the frames to the screen. So basically it still renders at 4K, so you still got all the beautiful smoothness of, you know, what 4K offers, but the GPU downscales the frames to 1080p using whatever settings you've got, and then pushes the frames out the buffer to the screen. So it doesn't saturate your connection, doesn't saturate your bus, so you can essentially run 4K at 100 and whatever frames you've got, 100 whatever hertz, which is impossible with a native 4K panel. So again, one of the reasons why my next rig is probably going to feature a 1080p or a 1440p high refresh rate panel, because I can always DSR for that beautiful crisp resolution if I wanted to, if my graphics cards can handle it, but at the same time I get that high refresh rate, which 4K does not natively support. So that's something to think about. And, you know, say the graphics cards grow old, I can always play at the native resolution, or if I'm not pushing enough frames to warrant the 4K, you know, because I do prefer the frame rate over the resolution. But some games, say Valve's Source engine games, like, you know, Portal 2, Stanley Parable, CSGO, whatever, 4K, ultra settings, 110 FPS solid. So, you know, some games I do play like that. So, you know, just wanted to let you know that it is possible to do 4K at whatever hertz you want. So yeah, I think that's about it for this year. Actually, one more thing. Just wanted to let you know that I've also got a terabyte SSD there, which is a Samsung 850 EVO Pro SSD there for boot and programs, which I've stuffed full of crap. I've got this here mSATA drive, which is a little mSATA bay in the laptop there. So I've got an EVO 850 regular there, which is again another 1 terabyte, and I've kept the internal 750 hard drive in there as well, which I don't really use, but you know, it's there for storage. And then I've got an external 2 terabyte Glacier Porsche hard drive where I keep, you know, some of my work and videos and whatnots. So, you know, 2 terabytes of internal SSDs there, and then 750 storage. If I wanted to get rid of my slot loader DVD player, I could put in another SSD in there if I wanted to, or a hard drive or whatever. So yeah, it's a beastie laptop. So, you know, things like 4K editing, beautiful gaming, beautiful, everything just works. So I think now that's the end of that. Hopefully you found this video useful. Let me know if you did, because, you know, maybe you didn't know that you can do 4K at crazy refresh rates, or maybe you didn't know that you can overclock laptops, or maybe you didn't know that you can overclock screens, or, you know, maybe you just like seeing machines with extreme specs or whatever, you know. So yeah, hopefully you found this useful. Let me know. You know, there's comments down below. There's the like button. There's the subscribe button, which really helps me make more videos. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.